Are you gonna create like a random advertisement?
No, but if we start getting paid by McDonald's, can I tell you something? I'm taking the money. I'll tell them that I love the Big Mac. I don't care. I'll read whatever.
Love the Big Mac.
I do love it. I don't have to lie about that. This is First Person Present, a podcast from Hughes House about writing, reading, living, and everything in between. Join us for real talk about our lives on the page, the craft of telling compelling stories, and the realities of the writing lifestyle. I went to that show this weekend. It is by a band called King Gizzard and the Slizzard Lizard. That's not what it's called. Something. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And it turned out that like all of their everything was just about different kinds of lizards. I don't know. So for anyone who's not familiar, including my wife and frankly myself, before the show on Friday, right? Yeah. They're kind of like a jam band, but they're also kind of like a metal band. So whatever that means. And I was just really enjoying being at a live music show. It was at Forest Hills Stadium out in Queens, and it was nice to just be out in a big open space and experiencing what became very clear to me very quickly was literally just a mass hypnosis event.
Wow.
Where they had like a television screen on behind the band that was like going through all these psychedelic gradients. There was like literally a hypnotic spiral going that would like fade into like this crocodile face.
Oh my God. No.
And then the crocodile face would melt and a tree would grow out of it. And everyone was just like, everyone around me was like standing up in their seats and stretching. We were like, that looks good. We've been standing for a while. But I really enjoyed being there because as you watch a hypnotic live event like that, I feel like you end up just thinking a lot about art and a lot about your art and your relationship with art and how you consume it and integrate it into your life and all of that. I found myself thinking for long minutes about different aspects of my novel that I couldn't figure out. You know, I was thinking about the concept of spectacle and like the choices that writers make in their work that either contributes or takes away from the concept of spectacle. How if you're thinking about the concept of spectacle in the first place, you're making completely different creative choices than if you're doing something like trying to write a quiet dialogue-based novel between a mother and daughter, for instance, right? But that's not always the goal. So I was just thinking a lot about what does it mean for art to be a spectacle? What does writing look like as a spectacle? And who has written books that are spectacles in the history of literature? And I don't really have an answer for that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I can think of some books. I feel like it depends on how we would define that, but I feel like there are a lot of social spectacle books.
Like what? Like Edith Wharton?
Yeah, Edith Wharton. I feel like the category of books in which women go crazy and ultimately commit suicide.
Walter. Don't bark, doggy.
Come here. The category of books where women are going mad and eventually commit suicide, either because they're heartbroken or because they've been abandoned. I feel like that typically has spectacle attached to it sometime over the course of the narrative.
That's one of your favorite genres, actually.
That is one of my favorite genres.
What's the name of your Tumblr that may now be defunct about the reclining
nude? It wasn't a Tumblr. It is a Substack, and it exists. It's just that I keep writing posts and then deleting them. And I have many posts that are just in their draft form. So if I went mad and committed suicide tomorrow, then presumably you would have to look those over and decide what to do with them.
Would I find your Luigi Mangione manifesto in there talking about your back pain? That's what he was talking about.
Yeah. Well, he didn't kill himself. He just
killed he killed another.
He was hoping, I think, to just not get caught, which is frankly
he almost
fair.
made it.
He almost made it. If only it wasn't for McDonald's.
Yeah. When I think about spectacle in books, I think of something like Moby Dick, where it's like the spectacle of it is the enormity of the book itself, and how there are these doorstopper books that are like, I don't know, there was a reaction in the culture against them for a while because I think that they were viewed as this extension of like masculine ambition or something, maybe rightly so. But I think that it's interesting to watch a metal band on a stage make decisions about what lights to shoot, what like chuggas to do, and seeing how that is all based all upon the idea of spectacle. And we're trying to make a spectacle for these people, and we're trying to entertain them, really. So it's interesting to make the connection to me between that and something like Moby Dick, which people think today is like this arcane thing for like nerds in libraries.
That is a terrific example of spectacle. That book is so good.
We're Moby Dick heads here.
We're Moby Dicks.
We are truly an extension of masculine ambition.
It's a spectacular book. I think that it makes for a very good book club because it has some of the problems of Middlemarch, which is, I think that in the middle of Middlemarch is, we did Middlemarch as a book club, and the middle was the part where people started to sort of taper off, and the people that stayed were candid about the fact that it was hard to stay in the middle.
Oh my God, the middle of Middlemarch. The middle of the middle march was truly a forced march for me. The joke didn't come right along with that one, but it did eventually get there.
Anyway, it's I might pitch that to you down the line as a potential book club book.
Moby Dick?
Yes.
I'm in. Let's go.
I would reread that.
Yeah, Moby Dick was one of our first, Dasha and I's first romantic escapades was literally reading Moby Dick at the same time together.
I would have just described that as a two-person book club.
Would have.
But you, a lover of spectacle, described it as a romantic escapade.
It truly was.
Another was Anna Karenina, which is certainly in the category of my form of spectacle.
What have you been thinking about? What have you been doing recently?
Well, I won't be talking about revising again. That's for sure.
Hey, that was some good content for an episode 0.
I won't be talking about that. I will be talking about the fact that I'm thinking a lot about furniture because we have had to buy furniture, and I've been talking to my friends about what I consider to be a very difficult process, the acquisition of furniture. I have a client that I've spoken to about this, and his response actually was that him and his wife just bought pieces that fit exactly what they needed the measurements to fit, and that's how they took care of it. So
the only consideration was the measurement.
Yeah. So they were they looked at it, but they bought everything online. They did everything quite quickly. And the most important thing for them was just that everything fits, which makes sense because that is a big part of furniture. You have the space that you have, and you have to put the furniture in. It has that sort of what's Tetris-like feeling to it. I think that it's really revealed to me how difficult it is for me to imagine things before I see them. So I am not a very good online shopper at all. I think this has been when online shopping became a big thing and people started doing things like eBay where they would buy really great things that they, at cheaper prices because it was online or something. I feel like I really struggled to pick up on that. And this has kind of remained. I am not good at looking at something on a screen and making a judgment call. The end result here is that I am very slowly making decisions about furniture. It is extremely difficult for me. And typically what happens is I regret it almost immediately. It's never exactly the right thing I want. There's some texture problem or a size problem or a general feeling in the room problem. And on top of this, I'm a very picky person. So it takes me a very long time to just feel like this is what I want. And I do believe typically that if I find something I like, it almost it happens quite quickly and it clicks and I know exactly what it is and I want it and I keep it. It's pretty rare that I sort of grow into something. And I've been thinking about that because I'm talking about revising, it turns out.
Did you guys know that she's talking about revising? This isn't about furniture.
I have had a couple of mornings where I'm making changes to a scene and then I am going over those pages either later that evening or the next day in the morning and implementing some smaller kind of fine-tuned edits and then putting them in. So it's almost like going through this, the revised scene is going through a rinse cycle of sorts. And I'll find that sometimes I'll make the change on paper on a sentence level or just add something or omit something. And then when I go to implement that in the document, I'll revert it back to the original thing.
So you revert it back, not by pushing undo, but you like rewrite it with a cool new idea. And then you look back and you're like, that's exactly the same as the old idea.
It's that I don't actually implement the thing on the paper when I see that I'm about to change it on the digital document because I realize, I actually prefer this. So I just read a quote from an article, like a craft article I was reading the other day, where Raymond Carver, I think, was talking about how he gets to a stage where he's just shuffling commas and dashes around, and that's when he knows that he's just kind of doing busy work and it starts to feel kind of meaningless to him. And I'm noticing that I'm starting to do that. And I know that that's not because I'm done with the revision, because I do have things that, kind of bigger things that I need to do. But I do start to feel like, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you do start to feel like, I have a preference and I have a taste and I have a sort of way that I want something to be. And I can kind of keep gut checking myself all I want. But ultimately, I had kind of set my mind or sort of my taste on something. And so I probably don't need to keep fighting it.
Yeah, you chose that thing for a reason when you first chose it.
At the time that you had chosen it, correct. Yeah. That was so let's see how many times I can go through this podcast and not talk about revision. I'm 0 out of 2 right now. So
well, I mean, you're revising. You are doing a late draft revision, which is its own particular form of purgatory or hell, depending on who you speak to. And of course, that's the only thing you're thinking about all day, every single day, no matter what. I think it's funny that I'm like going to metal shows and being like, the concept of the spectacle. And you're like, the furniture is my revision.
Traffic swarms like bees against the banks. Glass half theirs. Glass half theirs.
I have a hot question straight off the press 9 months ago, reddit.com. Ladder support. I struggle with the writing of the first draft. I block very easily. It's easier for me to write poetry, as I think about the words more than the contents. I tend to overthink the content and then block. I can't wait to be to the stage of rewriting that first draft. Also, yes, the loneliness while writing is hard, and I struggle with it.
I'm very envious of people who struggle with the first draft, but not with the subsequent revisions, people that have really loved to revise. I think I had to learn how to love to revise. So the problem is if you don't learn to draft, you don't get the pleasure of loving to revise because there's nothing to revise. But the wonderful thing is that I think that in most cases, for most writers, most projects benefit from rigorous revision. So if that's the place where you shine, then you just need to get to that stage.
And it's amazing how many people we work with as writing coaches, as writers in the world, meeting other people who aren't necessarily experts or haven't spent that much time writing or thinking about writing, and now they're writing their book and they're going through their first draft and struggling, as people tend to when they're writing their first book. You know, it's not easy. But then they get to the other side of it and they think, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
My friend, you have only just begun. And then, third draft comes around, fourth draft comes around. In your case, seventh draft comes around right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're on 7.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when, in my opinion, the real work is happening. It's funny because I work with kids too. I work on writing with kids. I was working with a kid today who we've been looking at all of these personal statements, and everyone we read, he's like, oh my God, that's good. That's so good. It's like really beautifully written and like the point's really good. I could never do that. And I'm trying to tell him that this didn't always look like this. It's like when you go to the bookstore and you pick up a book and you're comparing your first draft that you're in the middle of with, Katie Kitamura, who's been through, I don't know how many drafts before she published that book, but a lot of drafts, and a lot of people, not just her readers, her editors, her agent, all of these people kind of glomming onto one project and developing it. The writer's hope is that they will be able to develop a team like that to sort of ease the revision process.
Yes.
But I just don't think that those people will ever replace that writer.
No.
Because the writer is the one who made all the decisions that got the draft to where it is today. All of those decisions are in the back of that writer's head when they're revising. And then when an agent or an editor comes along and says, well, why did you do this? Why isn't this conflict coming to a head in this scene, for instance? You know why, because these characters can't talk to each other like that, right? However, of course, they don't know that because they don't know your characters, and you're dealing with that weird veil that there is with any work, which is when it's yours, you know so much more and differently about it than anyone else who ever reads it will know. And when they read it, they know only what's on the page. And the great ordeal is finding a way through the veil to that person and being able to communicate on some kind of equal footing with them,
Yeah, and I think that, it is true that no one will love it and know it as well as you do, your project.
Oh my God, they might love it more than you do by the end.
Maybe. I don't know. I think, well, yes, maybe. But I think the important choices that have been made and need to be made in the drafting and the revising really will always come from you. But ladder support, I hope that they figure out that drafting can take many forms, meaning you can make these kind of smaller revisions as you're drafting if that's genuinely part of your process. If you're a person who really needs to nail the first chapter before you move on, then that's just part of your process. That's part of your drafting process. I think it's very foolish to confine yourself to a particular form. So people are really obsessed. I blame NaNoWriMo for this. Really obsessed with, use all kinds of aggressive verbs, vomiting and farting out the first draft and whatever else, throwing it and slewing it out, whatever. If that's just not how you work, that's not how you work. It's fine. I think it's worth trying things. I think it's important to experiment and find a process. But if you find that, working very quickly through a first draft is not something that you enjoy or can even do, then you need to find something that incorporates an active revision that allows you to finish the book.
Yeah, you just got to get the ending down somehow.
Yes, you have to work toward the ending, which is an extremely satisfying experience. It is extremely satisfying to have completed a draft.
You believe that?
Yes, I totally believe that.
Then
I
how
don't
come...
just believe it, I see it all the time. I see it in my clients. I see the utter surprise at having finished something like that. It's I find it very beautiful. It's kind of one of the better parts of my job. And there aren't very many bad parts of my job.
That's funny. Whenever I finish a draft, I have the most immediate and somehow always unexpected sinking feeling that this thing just sucks and it is not where I want it to be. And it kicks in like within 20 minutes of finishing. I do feel really good for a really short period of time. I guess sometimes it'll happen like I'll have like an evening and I'll be like, I'm going to have a beer. This is going to taste so good.
Okay. Well,
but then I wake up in the morning and it's like...
I guess I'm talking about that 20 minutes or that evening and how good it feels. And I have nothing to say about the loneliness. I just, that's the case. It's fine. You get used to it.
And the loneliness is hard.
Yes.
Table grapes. I have the first self-harm scene up next, and whilst the trigger isn't intense, it's going to be difficult to write. Because my character is literally myself at 14. My brain slips back into life at that age, and it stirs up a lot of memories and feelings I've not allowed myself to feel. I'm also struggling with how graphic to make the scene, since in my poetry I go quite graphic and detailed, so that's where my comfort and expertise lies in writing self-harm scenes. But this is possibly going to be a YA novel, so it's a hard balance to find between going graphic, but not too graphic.
YA has stricter genre conventions than much of fiction. Middle grade does as well. I think because of the inclusion of young adults and children, there are, if the intended path to publication is that this be a YA or a middle grade novel, then there are certain things that you can and cannot do in a way that I think is very much off the table, or very much unnecessary in adult fiction, be it literary or commercial genres. That said, I think probably it's unnecessary to make it extremely graphic in the end. I wouldn't sort of restrain yourself in the beginning if it feels like that's the more natural way to do it. You can always dial it back. And on the subject of difficulty with yourself being the subject, there are ways to distance yourself. I don't know the project at all. Table Grapes is a great username.
Yeah, definitely a highlight of the podcast so far.
Great username. So third person past tense, give them a name. If you can give them a description that is completely separate from you. I mean, anything that you can do to actually very much distance yourself from the material. Even if, and on the other side of that, the intention is to turn it into first person, present tense or whatever, or to use your own name, whatever we want to do there. What you want to do is try to defamiliarize this person, this 14-year-old you, for the purposes of writing the scene.
What's interesting is I do think that there's a process of defamiliarization that happens with characters kind of naturally over the course of revising a novel. Like, I've written many things at this point that are based in my own life, whether they be short stories or like novels. I have a novel that's on submission right now about a 13-year-old boy named Joshua who suffers a death in his family and then family troubles from that. Sounds kind of familiar if you know me. However, as I drafted through and went draft after draft after draft after draft, I think that it was around 7-ish where I started to feel like this creature on the page was fully separate from me, despite having it share pretty much all facts with myself. It being the character Joshua felt like a fully formed separate creature or entity from me at that point, like a tulpa with a mind of its own, or of his own, whatever. But that doesn't discount the fact that, like, in early drafts of that, especially when I was first writing it or when I was writing new sections that were really important, yeah, that was hard as hell to deal with some of those like latent emotions that were intentionally buried in myself by me for the purpose of self-preservation, you know? So I think that it is really tricky. And this is something that I think about a lot as I work with people who are writers and they're writing really difficult scenes from their lives. And I'm not a therapist. However, I'm urging them to explore those pieces because those pieces of their lives are like the most interesting thing to read about, right?
Dangerous.
And it's dangerous in some ways. So I don't really have anything definitive to say about that, about how to protect yourself or how to protect yourself legally, if you're me, from urging people to write about their trauma. But I do know that the most real things that people write are usually the things that they didn't expect to find about themselves when they were confronting those difficult pasts of theirs. And I have found in my process of doing this that it's been very liberating. So I have actually felt unburdened by writing about these difficult periods of my life and then processing it in some way. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily what one should do. Like, that's probably not the healthiest way to live a mentally healthful life. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, you are pretty mentally healthy, actually. Well, you know, again, only way out is through, typically.
Is that a book?
No, I think that's just a
saying.
I think so. It might just really kind of be a sentence more than any. No, it's probably. I think it's a saying.
That should be a book. I'm gonna run a quick Google search and see if it's a book.
Okay.
Wait.
While you run a quick Google search, I just want to encourage our Table Grapes writer to also, you know, this does work, to just go at it slowly and bake treats into, you know, pleasures and joys into this, and do a lot of nice, fun, lighthearted things on the other sides of those sessions. I had a very difficult time for a while in graduate school, and I think, Josh, you used to make us look at cat books.
It's right behind you on the bookshelf right now. There's a complete guide to cat table book. It's like a coffee table book with a lot of high-res pics.
Yeah, we did that. And then I think for a while I watched puppy videos. I don't do that anymore because I have a puppy now, and you can't convince me that those videos are real or true. That's not what puppies are really like. That's what they're like. That's what they're like 15 seconds a month.
Well, now we've had a puppy, so we know.
Toddling puppies that are just kind of napping. Yeah, that's
an old head classic called Too Cute from Animal Planet. Yeah,
Cute,
Animal Planet. Too bad that's not around anymore.
So
but
watch Too Cute, Table Grapes.
That's what I would recommend. Your doctors, you're not therapists. Therapeutic prescription for you, Table Grapes. Write that self-harm scene. Be careful. And then just watch Too Cute. You'll be fine. The puppies are fine. The kitties are fine, even though they get split up and adopted out, which is the kind of downer element there, right?
Yeah, that part's awful. I stopped watching the end where they have to, actually get adopted. I couldn't handle that.
You couldn't handle the beginning because you knew that was coming.
It's true. I couldn't really sustain. It became uncute to me. Okay.
Uncute. I think that we've done it. Good work. That's the ending. We'll have already faded out.
Oh, okay, good.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, check out hugheshouse.com, where you can find our writing community, our coaching and editing services, and more resources for writers. Book a free consultation call on our site to talk to us about your writing. We can't wait to hear from you.